So if you don't know who Pete Schopen is, you need to get out from under your rock. Schopen, tell me about I mean, you're one of those guys that made a huge impact on me, because when I had gotten into, I knew nothing about the pest control industry. And I got in as a tech, and I started reading your articles that you were writing on pest management,
right?
PMP magazine. And I said, wow, look at this guy, he's, showing his startup and his journey and all this. And I started following. I think I followed you for the first 3 years of that post. I remember you were one of the guys that actually posted their numbers, how you were doing. It was amazing to see that, because I've been reading in most magazines, and I've been reading a lot of industry magazines, just doesn't happen. And I thought that was like so unique. So like for the first 3 years, I followed you until I got started. And then I got so busy and I just didn't keep reading them, but I know you're still doing them. But for those of you, for those that don't know who you are, tell them about Pete Schopen and when you got started in pest control, and when did you decide to start up and all that good deal?
Yeah, we so my dad was an old Orkin guy.
Okay.
And back in the 70s, he worked at Orkin, and he's one of the top salesmen in America. He did a phenomenal job. He took his bonus check from his third year, and he started up Mid-Central Pest Control, which is based just outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And so he ran Mid-Central Pest Control for 40 years. And so all of us boys, all of his sons, we all worked for him at some point.
Right.
And that's how I paid for college, was working at Mid-Central Pest Control, and did that for 4 years. And then I got into sports broadcasting. That's what I went to college for. And so my wife and I, we traveled all over the country. We lived in Nebraska, Missouri, Mississippi, North Carolina, just kind of following my sports broadcasting. And then we had a tragedy in the family. Her father had passed away. And so we decided to move back to Chicago. And frankly, I know how to do two things in this world. I know how to broadcast a college football game, and I know how to kill a cockroach. I really have no other talents, none. So I decided
that could be the great start to a podcast.
Yeah, could be. So I decided to rejoin my father at Mid-Central Pest Control after I spent a decade broadcasting, and we did great. The company was doing fantastic. I worked there for about 5 years, but then I got that itch.
Right.
I want to see what I could do. I wanted to create my own legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started up Schopen Pest Solutions in April of 2006, and God's just been with us ever since. We've been growing like gangbusters. The first 4 years is just me running routes and doing all the billing and calling all the routes and stuff. But I had this idea my first year in business, literally my second month in business. I called up PCT magazine, and then I called up PMP magazine.
Right.
I called them both, and I said, "Hey, listen, I got this idea for a story." PCT said, "Hey, sounds like a good idea, but it just won't fit with what we're trying to do." But Marty Whitford at PMP magazine responded right away, and he and I had a couple of really good talks. I sent him some writing samples, and I said, I want to call it Startup Diaries. And Marty said, "Sounds good to me." And September, so I started in April. So September was my first article that came out, but it wasn't in the magazine. They put it on their website.
In September of what year?
2006.
Okay, so because I got into pest control in May of 2006.
Oh, wow. Okay, so yeah, you started 1 month after I started my company. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first year in pest control.
Okay, so September. So so many people went onto their website looking for the article that it was a huge success, and so from then they just started putting me in the magazine starting in 2007.
Got it.
So I've been in the magazine pretty much ever since. I took a 2-year hiatus at some point because of my company's growing so fast. I just didn't have time to write. But then once I had enough people working underneath me, Marty approached me again about picking it up. So out of 16 years, almost 17 years, I've been writing it like 15 years, writing the same article. So
Right.
it's been an amazing journey, really has.
No, I bet. I mean, I'm, for most people, I mean, a lot of the guys in the industry just don't read the magazine, especially at the tech level, because it's not something that usually interests them to really know. I'm just one of those guys that no matter what field I've ever been in, I subscribe to all of the industry magazines.
Yeah.
I've always done that, so I always knew what was going on in the industry. When I was in the auto glass industry, you talk about exciting. Auto glass, right? That's about as it's about as exciting as watching paint dry and water boil.
Right.
The first time I ever went to a fenestration conference, oh my goodness,
Yeah. I believe it.
So that was talking about manufacturing and all that, but I've always been that kind of guy, so I immediately subscribed to all the industry magazines. I was the Florida Pest Florida UF had one, and I think the Florida Pest Management Association had one, and then PCT and PMP. So I was in all of them, and I saw this article, and I'm like, oh man, this is so awesome. Because my thought process was I was always going to start up. I was never going to just be a tech. I was going to start up. I started up 3 years later in 2009. That was,
it's scary. It's scary when you start up. And when I wanted to start my company, my dad was very gracious to me. He didn't hold any hard feelings against me or anything because we were in the same market.
Right.
So, in fact, he had little business cards printed up, Benedict Arnold Pest Control, for my company. But he's always my best friend, and so he was very proud of me. He had passed away a few years ago, but watching the company grow, he was very proud of it and stuff. And the thing that I get a kick out of is people do read the articles, and you know this. I write them whimsically, right? I try not to write them with a bunch of stats and a I try to write them kind of like funny. My mistakes, really, that's the best articles.
Right.
Mistakes I'm making as I'm growing my company. But the thing that people really targeted, like you said, was they loved that chart. Right. Because they say, well, I started in 2006 or I started in 2005 and I've been following how you've been doing it. And man, I just, how do I get that kind of growth? And so probably 2 or 3 times a month, I'll get an email from somebody asking me, hey, listen, can you give me some advice? And now there's probably 50 or 60 people that I talk to on a regular basis that I, just friendly conversation, mentoring, coaching, and stuff like that. And someday I'd like to take that in another direction and start mentoring, for money, but obviously at some point. But for right now, it's just kind of fun talking to people. Yeah, that's what I've been doing with a lot of especially the people who want to start up or the techs. I get mostly calls from a lot of techs in the field, that just because my podcast was more geared towards technical training and pest control training. And so I still deal with a lot of that from guys working for other companies that, man, I like to do some of the things, how would we do it? And managers that said, hey, I want to implement some of this stuff. How do we do it? And so that's what I'm getting. But for me, it was not so much the numbers. For me, since I'm just mostly a business manager most of my life, for me was the actual hey, this is what's supposed to be on my P&L. This is what I'm supposed to be looking at, more than just the numbers, because I that's not something I can go by, because the market is different and things. But hey, this was like what your chart of accounts would need to look like, and what's important to track and what's important to look at in a pest control company. I think that's vital. A lot of guys don't have any knowledge in pest management. In pest managing of the business part, all of their experience is just as a tech and some sales. And they don't understand the back office stuff of, what it takes to be profitable. I'm trying to teach my guys that, hey guys, the reason I price it this way is because these are the costs they're associated, and I need to build a consciousness in them that they understand when they can't sell a service at a certain price, because it won't be profitable for either. We're in business to be profitable, not just to, cover a commission or something. So that was extremely helpful for me when I started out understanding
because I understand how to read a P&L. I mean, I was a business manager. I've never been a real owner of just side businesses that I had, and a couple of ones that I started that didn't make it. So that's another story. But, that's for me was the most helpful throughout that time, to saying, oh yeah, okay, this is, he's growing at this rate. So I looked at the growth rate. I said, oh, this looks, really. One of the things I noticed about you is that you grew really slowly. You didn't grow like a lot of companies are talking about who wants to be the next, pest control billionaire. And, we want to have a gazillion routes by next year. And I think that there is a sacrifice there from operating businesses that grew, and the pain that came along, even as a manager, to growing a business that's profitable, but is healthy, and healthy, not just financially, but healthy culturally. And I talked to a lot of owners who just went through the chaotic 100% growth a year. And then it was just 100% turnover in staff, which is, a lot of the things. And I remember when you had posted, I think during COVID, you lost like 20% of your staff overnight, 30%. Some you fired, some just quit. It got chaotic. I've been in those companies. I went in consulting for a while to look at it. And I literally, my blood pressure went to like 160 over 105 after 2 weeks of being there. Just from observing, it was so much anxiety just in the turmoil. And those that want to grow realize there's, everything is toil, everything has heartache, everything has problems. But I think growing healthy with a culture, influencing the culture, developing your people, in a way that it's healthy. Let's talk about that. I mean, because you did it for yourself for 4 years. What was your first hire, a tech or an admin? What did you do first?
I did technician first. Hey, should I move this camera? Does it look like I'm looking down?
No, it looks fine.
Does it look fine?
Yeah, now it looked like you're looking down. But yeah, you were good there. Yeah, that's good. I mean, it's a little down, but yeah, but it's not too bad.
Okay, I just want to make sure that because you look like I'm looking at you in the Zoom, and you look like you're looking right in my soul.
Yes.
And I don't know if you're getting the same effect from me or not.
No, it's because your camera's on top probably of your laptop or your computer. Mine is actually on a tripod in front of my monitor, and my monitor is this little, where all I'm looking at is your face.
Okay, all right. So
it gives the effect that I'm actually just talking to you.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I do it. I shrink my little screen down, and I actually have it on a tripod.
Okay, very good. Culture is something we've worked at, really hard at Schopen Pest Solutions, and culture's not, at least I didn't think about culture till we had a lot of employees. So the first person I hired was a tech. And so what I did was my, it's one of those situations with a lot of single operators. I got hurt, right? I fell off the ladder and I got hurt. And so, but when you get hurt and you're a single operator, you don't have many choices. You got to get out there and keep working. And so, so I decided after my 4th year that I was going to hire people, but I also knew if I was going to hire people, that I wasn't going to just take it easy. I was going to put the gas pedal down, and we're going to do this. So, I hired a technician. On my 5th anniversary, I hired a technician, and then 6 months later, I hired another technician, and then I just keep hiring. And I ran routes. Franklin, believe it or not, I was still running routes until about 3 years ago, where I would still get out there because I like to meet my clients. I like to be involved in the company and stuff like that. Right. But I'm a part of a pest control side group, and we mentor each other. And they all tell me, you're nuts. We can't believe, because at the time I had 24 employees and no managers. It was just me,
right,
with 24 people. But we had, at that point, we had SOPs in place. And for anyone who doesn't know, SOP is standard operating procedures.
Right.
We had really solid SOPs in place. So I didn't need a bunch of management because everybody was following my directives. Right.
Which is where I want, that's the same kind of model that I'm building right now, where I'm giving a lot of accountability to the tech, but there's also a lot of compensation that goes with that. So I'm going down that same model because I hate micromanaging. I'd rather lead people. And my goal, the way I tell my people is, look, my job is not to manage your day-to-day operation.
Right.
My job is to create those SOBs for you to follow them, and then for me to help you and coach you. And so I really only get involved. Like I gave up on the route. I was in a route for years and I gave it up, and I finally said the same thing. I said, I got to stay here and do what it is I do most, and it's oversee everything.
Yep.
And trust them that they're doing it. So now I really only go out into the field once a week, twice a week, whenever they have there's a client that just whatever isn't satisfied for whatever reason, which is like 1% of the time, or big accounts, or I got to go look at this account before we sell it because it's complicated. It's going to be a headache if I don't get it right. So that's been my mentality also. And I talked a lot about that situation. I said, for all you guys that say you only want to be a solo operator because you don't want the headaches of having employees. It's not that they don't want employees, is they don't want the headaches. And that comes along with it. I said, but what's going to happen when that happens, when you get injured? I mean, I had it happen to me, not injury, but health-wise, medically, it's just, my body is 51 years old. It dealt with 6 years of cancer. I can't go and do the stressful things that a lot of people do. So I have to be smart and say, how do I build a machine that can almost run itself without me having to be there all the time?
Right. I think,
and really work hard at that, because that's one of the hardest jobs I've actually had. It's not easy doing that. It's really hard because you got to get out of your own way. And that's hard even for me to just say, I got to get out of my own way and trust the process and then just manage, so yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, so the culture thing is something that has happened recently, I would say, at least for us. So we got our SOPs in place, and we had service agreements, and I coach all the time. Even today, if I see something wrong, I'll stop an employee and I will take 5-10 minutes and I'll coach them. I don't ever yell. I coach, right? I mentor. And if I see something wrong within the company, then that's what I'm working on for the day. Is I'm working on an SOP to fix that problem, right? The culture thing came about 5 years ago because I just really wasn't happy with the people I was working with. We were growing. Schopen Pest Solutions, we've grown by about 25% every year. Some years more, some years a little bit less, but on the average, it's 25% every year.
And just to interject there, because we throw out that number at the beginning, that's kind of slow growth. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about you've got 5 routes, that's literally more than a route a year.
It is now. Well, yeah, now we're growing.
And when you got 10, that's probably every 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, we added. Yes, last month, November, we added 120 new clients last month. So, right. I mean, we're adding, we'll add 14.
That's a third of a route if you're doing quarterly.
Yeah, we're adding about we'll add probably close to 25 to 2,600 clients this year, quarterly clients. And so we're at this point, we're adding, 10 routes a year is what we're doing. So,
wow,
which is what we want to hire. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, because that's something that you have to prepare for. But so the culture thing came about because, I just wasn't really happy with the people I was working with. And so I read the book Traction. And I highly recommend people read that book. If you're a business owner, you should read it. And so that's when I came up with a leadership team. And I told my leadership team, I said, here's the deal. I'm not really happy with the people working here. And by the way, I fired 8 people. Of those 24 people, I fired 8 people.
Right.
So I fired a third of my company. And then
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Yep. So we went out and we started hiring new people to replace them. But we hired them based on our new core values at Schopen Pest Solutions, which we had not had before.
Got it.
So 5 years ago, I had my wife sit down with 4 other people within the company. I called them my leadership team. And what they did is they each came up with items that they liked about Schopen Pest Solutions. And then what they did is they narrowed those items, it was like 35 to 40 of them, down to 7 core values. And those 7 core values are what we live by now at Schopen Pest Solutions. We came up with a motto. We've always had help is on the way, but now that really hits home, because with the 7 core values, we're focusing on our company motto. It's on our baseball caps, help is on the way. It's on our business cards, help is on the way. When the ladies answer the phone, Schopen Pest Solutions, this is Kim, help is on the way. How may I help you? It's in everything we do now is help is on the way. Help is on the way. It creates that sense of urgency for the client, for our employees. And what it really does is with those 7 core values now, we are hiring people based on those core values. Is this person going to be a good fit for us? If they're not a good fit for us, we're not going to hire them.
Right.
And if somebody is starting to slack off and not follow our 7 core values after we hired them, or they get distracted, then we'll coach them, we'll mentor them. But if we can't fix them, then we'll fire them as well.
Right.
Okay. So we are, we have a little bit more turnover rate than I'd like, but it's because we only want the culture at Schopen Pest Solutions that we're building. We want those people working with us.
Right.
Okay. So it's been huge for us. We a lot less phone calls from upset customers when you have all the employees rowing the boat in the same direction.
Yeah.
And we do that through a lot of different ways. We do it through training. Training's huge here at Schopen Pest Solutions. We do a ton of training.
Right.
Alrighty. We have our standard operating procedures in place. We have our protocols. And all those things combined, just we got a really nice atmosphere at Schopen Pest Solutions for sure.
Right. Let me ask you this, because this is, I think, for a lot of us, I was just working on my SOPs again this morning. So I'm revisiting them as things happen. I'm coaching, developing protocols. Like right now, I'm recording daily videos for my guys. Hey guys, this is went wrong. It's usually operational stuff, but it's the top 7 things that always bites us in the butt that they keep missing. Like their basic communication skills are horrible at just communicating with the customer. In other words, that you need to make sure that you emphasize to that customer what time you will be there, and not just say there, I'll be there in the afternoon and I'll let you know. A client can't sit at home all day. You got millennials thinking, what do people got to do? They don't have kids. They don't marry. They don't, their job is get home and go play video games sometimes, and for me, it's like, hey, all of these people are usually busy. We need to just be conscious. So I have my 7 things, and I got to constantly keep reaffirming those, because you can't just tell them one time. Depending on the week, one will slack off and, he wants to leave early because he's got some friends coming into town or whatever, and he's rushing. And I see it because he starts stacking too many clients and then things fall behind. So my management is, hey, what's going on this week? Are you okay? Why is this happening? And then not wait till the end of the month to then have a pouting session of why things didn't get done. So I just, on a daily basis, so I was looking at my SOPs, which I've always been on protocol, policy, procedures. I have them on 2 sheets of paper to make it easy for them to follow. It's not huge. It's not a manual they got to read through. But if we just follow these basics, we'll always, we'll have 99% success. And everybody's going to be happy. When that one customer isn't happy, it's par for the course. What do? We just accept it. So at what point when you realize you weren't happy and you did, obviously as an owner, you hired because you were growing. At what point would you recommend to an owner, if you're thinking about growing? Because a lot of guys will say, no, it's just nonsense. This is all corporate BS. I get a lot of that attitude from people. And I said, no, you don't understand the multiplication of complexity. When you go from 3 to 6 to 9 technicians, it's no longer the same company. It's very different. I notice it even when I have 3 technicians. It's very difficult. And unless you have a management mindset of where you're tracking this, it becomes, then that's when you get to that point where you're saying, crap, I got to fire 30% because I made these mistakes because I didn't have this in place. At what point would you want to have a lot of those things in place? And in the culture of the company, most of the time it's people don't think of the core values. It's mostly their values, but they haven't articulated them.
Well, I'll start with that and I'll work my way backwards.
Okay.
So I didn't want the core values to be Pete Schopen. Okay. That's why our leadership team, I said, what are the seven things you guys like about Schopen Pest Solutions? If it happens to be some Pete Schopen stuff in there, that's fine. But I didn't want it to be me saying these are our core values, right? Because I didn't want to taint the test pool, right? I wanted them to come up with the core values, and I love our core values. Our core values are a sense of urgency. Our core values are compassion. Our core values are honesty. Our core values are operational integrity. Our core value be passion, enthusiasm, and being nimble. Those are our 7 core values of Schopen Pest Solutions, and we promote it all the time to all of our employees. We have meetings about it all the time. As far as when do you start the standard operating procedures? Last week I was hanging out with Seth Garber for a little bit from Pest Daily. We talked a little bit, and his thing is he doesn't think you should start it right away. Start it, when you're a mid-sized company, maybe it's a better time to start it. And I tend to lean towards earlier. And in fact, I'll give you an example. When I was by myself, just Pete Schopen, I already had service agreements in place. Why do I need service agreements? I'm by myself. I'm going to talk to my customer, Franklin Hernandez. I'm going to tell Mr. Hernandez all about everything I'm doing. Why do I have to have service agreements in place? Well, it's because I wanted there to always be consistency from day one. So I started service agreements immediately. The first day, I started doing banking slips. I put it on the paperwork. How much money did I bank today? And I start stapling it to all my daily sheets. I just started doing all this stuff from the very get-go. Okay. But once again, so I'm not saying Seth's got his opinion on it. I got mine. It's just Pete Schopen. I started it right away. So.
Yeah, no, I did the same thing on SOPs. Just because I'm more of an operations guy, I just tend to think more in the technical part, the operations part, the management part. I'm not a very good marketer. That's never been my forte. It's been sales and management. So I just thought immediately of how would I run this business if it was mine, and this is how I set it up. So that's why I don't have that many issues on that part. As far as the culture, I think culture evolves. It doesn't necessarily, it starts out one way and then it becomes something else. But, having those core values of what, as far as service, and this is something that's actually the way you described it. It's something that you can actually test for when you're hiring people, because these values are all part of their traits. You can't teach somebody to be punctual. You got to constantly be on them. It's like, dang, I can't work with this. It's not going to happen. So a lot of these core values are instilled in operations and things that they can actually follow, that they can implement. It isn't, we want to be warm and fuzzy. And, what does that mean? I think they're very intentional.
No, that's a great point. I'm going to be giving a talk in New Mexico at the end of January. Alan Foyer has invited me to come over to New Mexico and talk.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking about culture. And that's one of the things I say, exactly what you just said, is culture isn't like me running around the office high-fiving everybody. It's not me giving out bonuses on golden platters to everybody and stuff. It's everybody understanding what the next person in line is supposed to be doing.
Right.
We're a true team. We're a true, just like a football team. We're just like the U.S. Army, right? Everybody understands what the next person's doing, and we're all trained the same way. My billing lady knows just as much about pest control as my general manager. Okay.
Yep.
We have classes, we have training on us all the time. So everybody's an expert at Schopen Pest Solutions. So there's also accountability, right? Accountability is huge at Schopen Pest Solutions. All right.
Right.
Once again, it doesn't mean I'm hugging everybody. Nothing. It's not like that at all. It's like, hey, listen, this is what we expect out of you. You didn't hit it today. What can we do to make you better tomorrow?
Right.
All right. That's what my employees appreciate. They appreciate I'm not yelling at them, that I'm working with them.
Right.
And, and I tell all my employees, it just takes one aw shit to ruin a whole bunch of attaboys.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of pats on the back, right?
Yeah.
And so so that's something we're really hard on is that it's not warm and fuzzy all the time. Okay. We do have fun, right? We have a chili cook-off. We have big Christmas.
Right.
I do give really good bonuses. I handed out $37,000 in bonuses this year to my employees. So we do a lot of cool and fun things, but I think what my employees appreciate the most is that everybody is accountable.
Right. Yeah. And when you're playing on that team, which is, I talk to people all the time, the stuff they put up with. Like, I'm not a big sports guy. Obviously you are a sports guy, but I can appreciate the concepts that if you have an underperforming player on the team that makes the team look bad, no team in the world would ever keep them on the roster.
No, because all the other teammates they all start complaining.
Yeah, and the thing is, they hold him accountable in the locker room and say, "Hey, dummy, you really dropped that ball." So in most businesses, the employees come to you with a gripe.
Yeah.
And I said, why didn't you go to him with that gripe? I mean, why are you coming to me? Well, I just, no. If we're a team, everybody holds each other accountable. And at one point, if you don't, the team makes everybody look bad. It ruins the morale. And then people are disgruntled. And I think it leads to that where I look at surgeons and I say, surgeons are ruthless.
Yeah.
I mean, they gotta go in and cut you open to save you. And that's brutal because recovery and all that. But at the end of the day, he understands that that's what he has to do. And when
I would tell you just one thing. How many technicians do you have now?
Right now we got 2.
Okay. So when you get up to 20 technicians or 25 technicians, or we'll have 30 this year. Okay. Unfortunately, you can't let them hold the other guys accountable because it's HR problems, right? You have a human resource problem then at that point.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Because
when you're a smaller company. Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. When I was small, when I had like 4 technicians, right? I used to tell all the guys, hey, listen, coach each other, mentor each other, hold each other accountable. Absolutely. Now, when you get enough employees, it becomes an HR issue.
Yeah, that's the other thing is the compliance.
Always evolving, like you said earlier. It's always evolving. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people criticize the method of when he was the CEO of GE. Where he had this, he created the whole concept of bottom trimming. Every year he looked at the employees, says the bottom 10% have to go because they're holding everybody else back. When you allow somebody to underperform, because you feel bad for them, you're not doing them any favors either, because they're in a place where they're underperforming, where they could be doing something else with their life, where they could be excelling. I don't think everybody is going to be a $1 million pest control company, but everybody's got some type of potential to do something great with their life.
I agree. I agree a little bit with the bottom trimming. I do. We have, I think we have really strong KPIs in place. And once again, for anyone out there doesn't know, it's key performance indicators.
Right.
We got a really strong KPI system in place where we monitor not only the technicians, also the office staff. Okay, our inside sales team, we monitor everybody through our KPIs, and I wouldn't say we trim the 10% off because we're too small for that, but definitely the 2 or 3 people that are underperforming, we'll have talks with them, we'll keep coaching them, we'll keep trying to move them up, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and at that point you got to cut loose.
Yeah, and that's been my thing, and that was hard for me at the beginning, when I had a guy that I knew he wasn't going to perform, and he was having all kinds of issues, and I held off from that for 9 months.
Yeah,
through the coaching, and like he would even sit at across the table, and he knew he wasn't cutting it. He was admitted he wasn't cutting it, that he couldn't overcome his issues, and he just asked me one day, bro, why do you even care?
Mm-hmm.
and at that point, because I do care about people, and, in the process, to hire is brutal. So if I got a guy that I can see he has, I keep working with people until they give up and they like, but at one point when the company gets so big, that becomes so draining and taxing. When you have 10, 15 people that they're like that, when it's one and you're like, okay, today we can, muddle through this, but when you've got 10, it's like 20% of your staff is always, and then there's the people who, then everybody looks at it and says, oh, he gets away with it. And then it just ruins the culture. I mean, it just, that's the whole issue of is that, juggling back and forth in the culture, versus buying foosball tables and coffee bars for people, thinking that's culture. I don't think that's culture. I think it's how everybody conduct in the expectation, and whatever that is. And then like I said, that could change later on. It always does as things evolve, and we've got a younger generation of people without no work ethic because they have no work experience.
I will tell you that the next group of workers has been outstanding for us. We got an 18-year-old kid who's working for us right now. Guy's just a gangbuster. He's doing a fantastic job, smart. Right. He's going out there, he's working hard. I have 2 managers right now. They're 25. I mean, these guys, they're hustling, right?
Yeah.
It's so I'm very happy with the next generation coming up. I think they're really good, hard workers, and I'm really excited for them. One thing I would tell you about us, and once again, I don't have all the answers. Obviously, I'm a work in progress myself. I'm learning as I'm going and growing the company. But one thing that I've noticed is that at Schopen Pest Solutions, we seem to operate much better when there are layers, right? There's me, there's my GM, there's my director of operations, there's my district manager, there's the managers, there's supervisors, there's the technicians, there's office staff. So there's layers. And once again, everybody's kind of looking up to the next person saying, well, that's what I want to do. And how can I get there? And then once again, part of our culture is the training and teaching and coaching, because we want them to get there. Chris Bauman is my director of operations. His goal is within the next 3 years, he wants 90% of Schopen Pest Solutions employees to be licensed. That's not technicians. That's all employees. He wants 90% of all employees to be licensed. And we're working really hard right now to make that happen. We've got 3 office staff, 3 ladies who have never held a B&G sprayer in their lives.
Right.
Have licenses.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing. They got 90 plus scores. Illinois is a tough test. Illinois is a very hard test. Unlike Wisconsin, we work in Wisconsin and Illinois. Wisconsin's an easy test, but it's a lot of book work. Illinois is a tough test. And so we got 3 ladies that are licensed, and that's the culture we want. They bought into it. They say, yeah, we want to know more. We want to move up with you, Pete. And it's been great.
Do you think, I mean, in all honesty, if you didn't have the plans to grow your business the way you did, the legacy you want to live, people want to, especially younger people, they want to grow, want to be in a place where they know there's upward mobility for them.
Yeah.
But when you're a 4-man operation or a 6-man operation, you can't retain that employee because he's going to outgrow you.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, I outgrew most of the companies I was with because of that reason. I just got bored to death. A guy with ADD who's a hustler and a go-getter, and you keep him in the same place and you say, you're going to stay here till you die, it's detrimental to me. I took lesser paying jobs just for a bigger challenge because I was that kid. And how are you like in your recruiting process and all that? What are you implementing to find that kind of person that is the fit for you in that culture? Because that's the most difficult part, is identifying it. Like, what's your process like as far as, attracting those people and then bringing them in and then onboarding them? Because I think that's where most companies fall apart, is that onboarding and the failure to ID the right person because they don't have a culture. So
what we do is, we do all the similar routes that a lot of people do. We use Indeed. I'll tell you something. For the first 16 years I was in business, for 16 years, I never paid once for advertising to hire somebody. Not once. I used Facebook. I used my church. I used my baseball connections. I coach a lot of baseball teams, and I used all those connections to keep hiring people. And we are on part of 12 different local Facebook groups. And anytime we have a job opening, I just throw it out there. Hey, we're hiring. This is how much we pay. These are the incentives you'll get with us. And it's been, can you hear the clicking in the background?
No, it's fine.
Okay, good. That's my wife. She's trying to work. Well, so I was going to kick her out if she was bothering you.
Nah, we're good.
Okay. All right. You're good, honey. So anyway, so until this year, we really had not done any paid advertising to hire people. But as you know, the great resignation that happened all across our country, where 10% of our workforce just decided we're done working forever. It was really hard finding people, and no one wanted to work when they're getting these checks from the government.
Right. And
so in February of last year, I actually started using Indeed. I would have Indeed on for about 10 days. So I paid $45 a day, and the Indeed worked really good for us. I was shocked. We got quite a few people through it. And so I did all my hiring in 2022. Almost all of it was through Indeed. And it worked out really good. Once we get those applicants to come in, then one of the things that happens is either my general manager or myself, one of us will interview that candidate. It's one of us. If we like that person, then we will have 3 peers, 3 people who work here will then interview that person. It has to be unanimous. If all 4 people, me and the other 3 people, or my GM and the other 3 people, if we all like that person, then we'll hire them. For us, it's not the Wonderlic test, and I don't have them doing those flip up charts or anything like that. It's an emotional hire. We want them to fit our culture. Right. So we have 2 pages of questions. It has to do with our culture. And we don't say, hey, this is how it is at Schopen Pest Solutions. Do you agree? It's not like that. We'll ask them questions. We'll lead them into a conversation.
Right.
And then we'll listen to their responses. Right. So all the people interviewing them all have the same sheets of paper. They'll jot down lots of notes, and they'll rate the person on all the things they're asking them. That's our SOP. That's our standard operating procedure for hiring somebody. Once again, I really believe you have to have SOPs for everything. So everybody's doing it the same way. If I go to Denver, Colorado, and I buy a burrito from Chipotle, then I go to Miami and I buy a burrito from Chipotle, that burrito should weigh the same and taste the same.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is the consistency of the success of franchises that most people don't get. And when I talk to most technicians, and they're like, no, you just want us to be robots, and I want to do it. And I walk in the companies literally where I've looked at 6 different employees, went out in the field with them, drove with them, and all 6 are doing the same pest problem differently. And they wonder why they have 20% callback rates. And when I bring this up, then there's just an enormous amount of pushback. But I've said this from the inception of my podcast, that without those SOPs, you won't have a consistency in service. And yet the most experienced people in the field will argue with me every time. But after, you've worked and been a technician for 15 to 25 years, you've got like your way you learn to do it, and you want to walk into a company like mine,
right? And
you'll never make it because I got to retrain you, and it's too hard. And this is what these people that are listening to me will hit their head against the wall all the time. It says, nobody appreciates my experience. It says, you got to understand, I appreciate the experience. It's useful. But when it comes to how we perform, we all have to perform the same way and do it the same way. And if you actually find a better way that we can incorporate, I'll listen to you and we'll incorporate it, but then everybody else has to follow it.
I think that's a very valuable point. In all my 17, it will be 17 years this April, I've hired 1 person ever from another company, ever.
Yeah.
Okay. because it's too hard to retrain them, and they do get their feelings hurt.
Yeah.
So we hire raw people have never done this before, and then we train them up. And I am completely open to new ideas.
Right.
I had a technician come up one time and say, Pete, why don't we use tri-dye for bald-faced hornet nests? We're power spraying. We're making a mess all over these people's houses. Why don't we just shoot tri-dye in there, clip it, and be done with it? And I was like, okay. So one summer we tried it, and it was a giant success for us.
Right.
So, so there's, I am always, once again, I had another employee, Chris, my director of operations. He said, Pete, why aren't we using backpacks? Why are we using these big power sprayers and dragging hoses through people's dog poop in their yards and stuff, and breaking little light fixtures? Why don't we go with backpack sprayers? And I started thinking to myself, as a business owner, a new hose on a power spray is $400. Well, I can get a flow zone for $400,
yep.
right? Or close to that, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it made complete sense. So now we're in the process. We're in what about a 5-year period where we're slowly switching out and getting rid of all our sprayers and going back.
It was funny because I do a lot of teaching over at the extension center, a cooperative extension center. I've been doing it for 9 years. And I walked in and I said, in 2009, it was 2009, 2011. I said, I'm getting rid of all the power rigs for GHP and all that. And I said, we're going to backpacks.
Yeah.
And everybody laughed. Can't be done. You can't get this, you don't need 10 gallons per 1,000 square feet to control ants. And everybody laughed at me. And today it's like the new revolution of people using backpacks. But, it's like everything that comes out, I'll test it, and companies already know, they'll send me stuff because they know, I'm a test junkie, and things like that. But there's so many things that it's like, yeah, why are we dragging a hose? That was my same thing. Every time I would get so many complaints. He broke my sprinkler head. He broke our light. He broke this. And it's like, really, we're dragging a hose around a house to deal with an ant problem. And so I got rid of it.
For us, our big thing up here is wasps and spiders. That's our really big thing up here. So we got to hit those peaks. And so for me, if I was a single operator, I would have a power sprayer. I would, because I know I would be careful.
Yeah.
I want to get it up there. But the flow zones are so good now. You can get up 30, 35 feet if there's no wind. I mean, you can
I bought one of the giant flow zones. I think it was the Typhoon. For shrub spraying, because we do a lot of Illinois. I mean, I used to be 95% lawn and ornamental. Mostly about 60% of what we do is ornamental work, not lawn. So we have these big giant shrubs, and people like, you can't control pests. And I would argue, and I said, okay, how do we control pests in a orchard where you have 15-foot trees? All it is a giant blower with a mist. I said, you're telling me we can't do ornamentals on 15-foot shrubs with a mosquito sprayer that is a mist blower? And I did it, and I challenged everyone in that room, and everybody said no. The problem is we've already been doing it for like 2 years.
Yeah.
With success. Right. So it's like, think everything I learned everything I learned about ornamentals, I decided, who knows more about protecting plants than pest control people, and that is farmers. You can't lose your crop.
Right.
And that's how my thinking process, just that way, because I'm mostly operational. So I get a lot of ideas from a lot of people. My techs have come up with good ideas. We've implemented it, and things like that. But I said, I want you to think this through. You just started here. You know nothing about pest control. And I had one guy decided he was going to watch YouTube videos on how the other guys were doing it, and then start implementing that. And boy, it's like all the callback rates went through the roof. I says, why are we getting all these callback rates? Right. I started looking. I said, no, I started doing it. I said, I told you I have a training program. I trained you. I gave you the protocols. Why did you change it? Well, I don't know. I just decided, no, you don't get to experiment. You don't get to change it. If you want to, it's controlled, where we're like, okay, let's try this new product on these 10 homes for a year and see what happens. And then we can compare, but we're not just going to blanket. I had one guy that he would have a new manufacturer come in every month to train his people. And it was, here's the greatest new product. And I said, this is why you're getting a ton of callbacks on these ants. You're causing the problem. And when we tried to take that product away, the techs went nuts. I mean,
we had a similar situation. I train my people too. I go, listen, don't go grabbing after the shiny new toys all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, don't be like a cat, right? You're always grabbing that shiny new little toy all the time. I go, don't do that. I go, if something makes sense, bring it up to the group. And we do. We have weekly management meetings, and then we have monthly end of the month meetings with everybody. And I said, bring it up one of the meetings. Let's talk about it, and then we'll see if it's something we want to use or not. But we had a situation. Where I've always used weather block. Weather block's okay. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It's okay.
Right.
It's cost effective, and it works for me. Okay.
Right.
A lot of people use contract or soft base or whatever. Okay. So then we started getting a couple of complaints from some people saying, boy, it seems like the outdoor baiting isn't working. Can you come check our stations? We go check them. The bait really wasn't being eaten very much. So what I did is I told them we're going to go with Resolve soft bait, and we're just going to switch things up, see if they go for that or not. Okay. Well, sure enough, the outdoor rodents were going for the Resolve, and but they're also going for the weather block too. So whether it was young pups, whether it was older rodents not going for bait, who knows what was happening? Drought, wet, who knows? Food competition. We really don't know why they weren't going for the weather block that particular time. But when we went back out, they were eating Resolve, but they were still eating our weather block too. Well, one of my technicians got in his brains that Resolve only works in Wisconsin. Clearly weather block works in Illinois, but weather block must not be working in Wisconsin. There's a whole different type of rodent up in Wisconsin that doesn't eat weather block, right?
Right.
So now when he was out training people, what would he tell them?
Oh, you're in Wisconsin.
I'm like, oh my God. So we had to have a big meeting about Resolve and weather block. I said, listen, nothing wrong with Resolve, nothing wrong with weather block. The only reason I even went with Resolve was to appease a couple of clients to see if switching up the bait would work.
And you set the example now, and
right. So now, you gotta be really careful. So our SOPs, we use weather block. That's what we use. But if you got a situation where you want to switch things up to give the rodents some variety, I said, go by all means, switch up the Resolve. I'm fine with that. Buy contract. Ask our director of operations to get some contract. I don't care. Quick kill. Whatever you want to use, I don't really care. But just make sure that you're talking to everybody first. We're all on the same page, and then we're all agreeing to it.
Yeah, no, that's it. So what I'm finding is that I have to have weekly meetings. Short, they're short. What I'm doing is little videos. Hey guys, this happened in this situation.
Yeah.
Here's what we did. There's no need to have a giant discussion about it. It's most of the time it's, hey, when this happens, then this. But, sometimes I tell the tech, do one thing one time, and then it just becomes gospel.
Right.
And then, no, that's not what I said. I said, so again, I limit what they can carry. If we have we carry, for us, JT Eaton peanut, anything with seeds in it seems to be highly attractive. We have roof rat. So our biggest thing is roof rat. We don't have Norway. For if we need a quick knockdown and where the populations are super high, then we're using First Strike. But I don't like using those baits for maintenance. They're very expensive, and you have the secondary issues that I don't like using it. So I said, then once we get this cleared, we just go over to JT Eaton peanut, and this is what we use for maintenance.
Yeah.
It's having them use that judgment of when they need it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I got to trust you that, hey, this, you use this for this reason. It's like, how many blocks do I put in a station if there's nothing being eaten? I said, let's put 4. We come back in 7 days and we monitor. And then we come back in 7 more days and we monitor. Because just because they didn't eat it doesn't mean there's no rodent population.
Right.
People are complaining they're seeing them all over the place. So I said, let's monitor and come back in a week. And then if you see that they're not eating, what do you do with the box is empty? Do you put 4 more? He says, well, yeah. I says, no, put 8 because they wiped it out in a week. You need more. But do you put 8 or 16 in every box to waste it, and then it gets moldy, and then we got to throw it out. And that is that whole, there is no common sense for this. It's, you got to do the training, and then you got to use judgment. So one of the biggest complaints I always have is rodent stations. They're not. Right. So now what I do is, since we use pest routes, we create a subscription just for rodent, so they can't miss it. They say, oh, I never saw any boxes. The customer must have moved them. So now they have to do it on a, just for monitoring purposes, for KPIs. You know, how many blocks did you use? And you have to report it. You know, right. Things like, I mean, just these are the complexities that it seems like it's, you know, to you as an owner, as a tech guy who's been doing this, this is common sense. I said, there's no such thing to common sense. And that's the biggest mistake I think we make, in the frustration level that people have with training their people, is that it's common sense. No, it's not. If it was common sense, we wouldn't have DIY blogs of people saying, why can't I control German roaches with Raid?
We always have to, as owners, this is a huge point with me. We have to assume that our people don't know. And we have to. Right. I gave a presentation 6 weeks ago, and I was in Iowa. I was giving a presentation, and after the meeting was over, a bunch of people came up. We were talking about pest control, and they said, "Pete, what do you think is the most important thing in pest control?" I go, "We know you love culture, but what else?" And I go, "Well, training is important, and it's part of culture." Okay. Right. And they go, "What do you mean?" And I go, "Let me ask you." And I turned to a young man and I said, "What do you use in your power sprayer during the summer?" And he goes, "Oh, I use Tall Star." I go, "Okay, what's the active ingredient?" Just blank. I go, "You're putting poison on someone's home and you right. don't know what the active ingredient is." Right. And he goes, and I go, "It's bifenthrin, because I study pesticides." I go, "You have to know." I turn to another gentleman, and so now they're all now. No one wants to talk to me, right? Because now I'm holding them all accountable, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like me. Who wants to be on my podcast?
So I turn to the next guy, and I go, and by the way, the folks in Iowa were amazing. My 2 days, I spent 2 days in Iowa giving talks and stuff, and they were the most amazing people and fun people. And so I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just trying to
right. No, it's a reality of where
right. It is. And they were super people, and I had a blast my entire time in Iowa, and I hope to get back there really quick. But I turned another guy and I go, "What do you use for your redundant?" And he happened to use Weather Block. And I said, "What's the active ingredient?" And he looks down, and I go, "Okay, it's brodifacoum." I go, "What's the antidote?" Looks down again, and I go, "It's vitamin K1." I go, "These are the things that at Schopen Pest Solutions, my billing lady knows, my CSRs know, my GM knows, the managers know, and you better believe our technicians know what they're using."
Right.
And we don't quiz our people all the time on it, because once again, I don't want to make people feel stupid, but we coach them all the time. Like right. Someone will be walking past me, and I go, "Hey, what's in your B&G today?" "Alpine." "What's the active ingredient?" "Dinotefuran." We just make sure that everybody knows everything about our company, and we also translate that back to our customers.
Right.
As part of our SOPs, our salespeople will tell the customers everything we're using and how it works. We love the word trophallaxis. We'll throw that out all the time. We use this great bait, and the ants will spread it through trophallaxis, and the customer go, "Whoa, what's trophallaxis?" Right. Well, now my CSR went from being down here to just a stupid receptionist to way up here to, whoa, now the client goes, "Oh, this person's really smart. They're not just some person right. who doesn't know anything. Now my CSR is a doctor."
Right. Yeah, right? No, and I think I've had that argument forever. And I've gone into companies where I asked, "Can why aren't your salespeople in this training meeting? Why aren't your CSRs?" Says, "Well, they're not technicians. They don't need to know." I says, "This is the problem when I call a company and I ask the CSR, 'Hey, what is the technician and how's the service provider?' We don't know. We're just taking the information for the salesperson." And I've always had that argument, and you'll have companies who are growing fast argue with me. That's what you just said is totally irrelevant and necessary, because the only thing we care about is that name, address, and phone number, so that when the tech goes out, the tech can do that sales job, because in their organization, the techs are the salespeople because they get compensated to sell. And that's just the way they choose to manage it. I personally have always believed in that model of what you just described, that everybody who that person comes in contact needs to know how our services perform, how everything is performed. They don't need to perform it themselves, but they need to have at least the knowledge. And I'm moving toward that same thing of licenses. Licensing here in Florida is longer. The person needs to be with you 3 years before they qualify for testing.
Right.
And then it's a 200 question exam that can take up to 6-7 hours.
Wow.
It's extensive in Florida. It's hard for a reason. So what I'm trying to incentivize all my people now is, I want you to get licensed, those of you that want to stay, because I want to grow. I want to go into these counties, and I've already set my 5-year goal of where I want to go. And I think that's exactly the same way I've been thinking it, to do it. So, but most people say, no, that's stupid. And I said, no, that's exactly what needs to happen.
That's the culture at Schopen Pest Solutions. That's our culture.
Yeah. And I think, and to me, that's importantly vital.
Yeah.
Since I look at things operationally more than I look at the sales and market. I understand these are important. I've been in sales my whole life, but and numbers are important. But I think that without that culture, and without this thing, then you have that just chaos that you didn't want. It's unintentional. And that's why I said, the sooner you can start working on this, but I don't have 5 people. I don't have 10 people. Why should I read traction? Because if I talk to a traction coach or people that have taken traction, well, you need to be at least at $1 million a year in revenue before you deal with traction. I said, when do you prepare to hire people? Usually the moment you need them. Why aren't you preparing?
Right.
A year, if you know that in a year you're going to have to hire somebody.
Well, and that's a great point too. And I brought that up both at the Iowa presentation that I gave, and also recently in Indiana at another presentation I gave, was the fact that you have got to foreshadow what's going to happen with your company, right? You have to be an actuary. You've got to say, okay, if Schopen Pest Solutions is growing by 25% a year, and we know we are. I could go back 16 years and you'll see how we're growing. We're growing by 25% a year. So if that's true, and we're at 44 employees right now,
Jesus.
Well, that means that we need to hire 11 people. That's 25%.
Right.
So we know going into January, February, and March, in those 3 months, my branch managers and my director of operations, my GM, we all know we have got to hire 11 people over the next 3 months. And so, but that's what you have to do as a good owner, is you have to foresee these things. You have to understand what you need to do. And all my people on board, they all understand it, and they all buy into it. And because of that, even though we're growing bigger as a company, and we're kind of saturating the market where we're at right now, we're still growing by 25%. We will have to expand this year. We're going to open up a Wisconsin office. We got to get that going, and that'll happen sometime in probably March. But
let me ask you a question based on this. How is your stress level now compared to before? You're a way bigger operation, but compared to when you were maybe 10 techs.
It's different. It's a different stress.
Right.
Back when there's 10 technicians, I was still stressed out about the customer satisfaction. That doesn't mean I'm not
with that.
Yes, it doesn't mean I'm not concerned with it now. Of course I am, but I have people underneath me
that are concerned with that.
Yes.
Yeah.
My concern now is almost 100% employee related. Okay. So all of those single operators out there who don't want to hire people because they don't want to deal with problems and stuff. So it never goes away. But once again, when I had 10 employees, let's say, I was more concerned with, are they treating my customers fairly? Are we getting to the customers quick enough? Are we doing everything we're supposed to be doing for the customers? right? If there was upset customers, I was still taking all the phone calls, right? Now what I care about is this morning, perfect example. This morning, I had a young lady come to work and she's clearly sick. Okay. And I said, did you test for COVID? She had her mask on. I said, did you test? She goes, yes, I'm negative. She showed me the results. No one could come to work at Schopen Pest Solutions if they're sick, right? Because it's COVID, right? We just can't take the risk.
Right.
So they all have, so she did send in her positive or negative results to her superior, her manager. Okay. But doesn't mean that I get it. Like I said, there's layers now at Schopen Pest Solutions, so I'm pretty far removed from that. But I was down there visiting all my employees, and I saw her, and she had her mask on. I said, "Are you okay?" She goes, I don't feel good. I go, "Okay." I go, "Tell me what's wrong." And she told me, "Oh, I got kind of a runny nose and I got a cough." And I go, "Okay, have you done anything for it?" She goes, "No." She goes, "Once I knew it wasn't COVID, I'm going to let this run its course." So I ran to Walgreens real quick and I grabbed her some Mucinex and I ran it back over and I said, her, "Take this, follow the directions." And, but those are my concerns now is I want all my employees happy.
Right.
Right. I do hold them accountable, but I want them happy. I don't want them to be at Schopen Pest Solutions and be miserable. That's not what I want. Whether there's different stresses that maybe they don't feel like their boss is treating them properly, or they're sick. They got a lot of concerns. I have a young lady that works for us who has cancer, and she had nobody to take her to her doctor's appointments. Nobody. She's kind of a single mom. She has nobody here that can help her. So I took her to her doctor's appointments. Okay. So it's just with 44 employees, and we'll have over 50 employees next year. It's just a different kind of stress. Now I'm stressed out about my employees. I want to make sure they're all okay.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it is. I mean, I'm still wearing 5 hats. But I've decided, and I've been making some, a lot of the times it's those decisions. I didn't make the decision to grow. I mean, I had plans to grow, but just my health took a hit. My personal life financially and everything took a hit. And I just didn't have the energy. I still recovering, trying to get that energy, but it's been good in a sense that I had to learn I couldn't rely on everything I could do anymore.
Yeah.
And then I had to realize that I had to delegate everything, literally. And so I started delegating more, and I delegate more to my employees. I delegate. I mean, even my house, I don't clean my house. I do dishes. I hired a cleaning lady. I mean, just to that point where I'm just everything I want, I have to hire. And then I realize that I can grow more. I can think, because I was able to take a step back, get clarity, get focus, what I needed to do. I mean, I've had a van that I bought a year ago that we couldn't get going. I didn't have the energy to do it. So that's another thing that I tell people. I says, you need to think. And luckily for me, I've always had that I've always needed to hire. And I can't stay where I am because what's going to happen if X happens? And I live in a major city. This is a very shallow, superficial town. Nobody cares. Everybody will either quit on you at a drop of a hat or fire you at a drop of a hat. Nobody cares. So I realized I have to, make sure that, this, so I mean, like literally, I can leave right now with 2 employees and it will still operate because they know they're handling so much that I put on them. But the way I looked at it is, in my mind, I need to hire managers that can manage a territory, manage a route, manage the client, manage the product, manage the vehicle as if it was a store. And I just have a franchise mentality that I applied to that in my perspective that allows me to have less managers and more coaches, maybe, where they can be, because I spend a lot of time with them, so that's just been my mentality the whole time. Because I originally wanted to franchise my business. I'm still teeter-tottering with that idea. Maybe not. But at least I implemented all that early on in those concepts. So now you're growing. You're going to be 40 something employees this year. Dang, man. What do you do for marketing? I mean, what did you done? Because you're very conservative in what you're doing. I mean, I can see 25% a year. First of all, to maintain that consistency, that not to go into that 10, 12, And then, I mean, that's a hell of a consistency
to
have. It requires a lot of discipline, but it also, I think, requires a lot of self-restraint. Because
it does. It does. We once again, we have manager meetings all the time, and we're coming up with ideas on stuff we want to do. And some of the stuff it costs money to do.
Yeah.
I one of my friends from college is now works at Purina, and he's a big wig at Purina. And I had him come speak to my employees one time. And he asked me, he goes, Pete, he goes, what do you think? What do you think is a result of where you're at now? And I said, a big result of where I'm at right now is I can say yes more often than I used to. I can say yes to these different ideas and stuff like that. So restraint is important. But we do try to implement new things. And so anyway, but yeah, I try to say yes a lot more to my employees. That's for sure.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, compared to when you were probably 2-3 employees out, and compared to now, as far as a marketing mix, what are you doing for marketing? Because a lot of guys are curious always, how do we get more clients? How do I market? But, some people are talking door to door, LSA, all of this. What's worked for you consistently? And what are you doing? Because obviously you have to implement more things. You have to have a basket with a lot more eggs in it. What's going on with that?
We obviously we do search engine optimization like most people. I know there's a lot of companies out there that do their own. I get it. Yeah. Really smart people, much smarter than I am. Right. But you're not supposed to say right, Franklin. But anyway, so anyway, no, but that's why you hire people. You hire people that are smarter than you and do things. But I use Reach Local as a company I use. They're a bigger company, and they do my website and everything. We used Home Advisor for a long time. Home Advisor is just not attainable anymore. They're charging $60 to $70 a lead now. We're 5 years ago, they were charging $20 a lead. It's just not attainable. Right. And so we're slowly getting rid of Home Advisor. We use Thumbtack now. We love Thumbtack. It's where Home Advisor was 5 years ago. Very affordable. I like the interaction with Thumbtack that you get with your clients. I think that's a big plus over Home Advisor or Angie's List, whatever you want to call it. We still do a lot of social media stuff. We put stuff on Instagram, Facebook. We put funny pictures of what our technicians are doing out in the field, just building that recognition with the name brand, right? We do have billboard signs up throughout our county that we're in right here. Just funny signs showing, giant bugs and stuff on them and things like that. I would tell small operators a huge thing they should be doing is they should be a part of their Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce doesn't mean much to me anymore because we're at a good place with our company. But when I was small, by myself, or I had 2 or 3 employees, I was very involved in the Chamber of Commerce. Because when you're involved in the Chamber of Commerce, a chamber membership costs you $250, $300. It doesn't cost you that much money. In a small town, it might maybe cost you more in a bigger city. But what you're doing is you're getting salespeople, right? So you go to a networking committee or networking group, and you're part of 30 people, and you're all switching, handing out leads. Well, now all of a sudden, Pete's the bug man. Pete's our bug guy, right? They might not even be using my company, but it doesn't matter. They're going to have a friend who's got a pest problem. Oh, I got a guy through my chamber, Pete, the bug man, right? So any startup companies out there or 1, 2, 3-man operations, I would say if you're not a part of your Chamber of Commerce, you're really missing an easy way to get clients, okay? Because now you've got 20, 30, 40 people selling for you. And that's huge. It's important. So small operations, I would say visit every single home inspector, every single real estate agent, and hand out business cards because they are seeing people every single day. And they're seeing people that are just a step up removed from what we do for a living. Right. So I would hand out business cards to all of those people as well. And those are some things. I did door-to-door sales for a while. I had no choice. I had a
That's how
mortgage.
I started out. If I wanted to eat that day, I had to sell something, you know.
I mean, yeah, I remember the very first sale I ever made was for a wasp nest. And I remember that $200 check I was holding in my hand, like, what do I do with all this money,
Right.
But if you want to pay the mortgage, you're going to do door-to-door sales at first. Now, it's a different world from when I started. When I started, it was yellow page advertising. Okay. Now you can get search engine optimization up and running almost, instantly. You can do social media stuff with TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. I mean, you can really get out there right away and start getting clients.
That's how I did it. I mean, that's how when I rebranded this company in 2014, that's what I decided to do. Everything was SEO. I decided SEO and YouTube for me. And that's, still, I mean, we still get quite a bit. I mean, a ton from YouTube, believe it or not. Most people don't know, but again, I have 600 videos out there. But to me, that's a whole lot easier than knocking on doors. And it's a whole lot easier than paying out $3,000-$4,000 a month in advertising when it's still working for us. And again, it's starting to taper and we're looking at different avenues. I am looking at, one of the things that I am looking at is Thumbtack, but it requires that full-time person to be manning those phones, because that call needs to be.
Yes, but you would be that person.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Well, then
I'm going to hire somebody. I've decided that's one of the reasons. Once I do it and I decide to do something, I've decided if I have to do it, it's not going to happen. So I need to get a person. Like, I'm hiring a guy right now, a salesperson. I'm hiring my first salesperson to take all those calls. It's a great deal because he has been a previous salesperson for a big brand.
And I think an important thing in our day and age that we're living in right now is, I think, a social media czar, social media director.
Yeah, I got one of those. I got a guy he's almost full time.
I need that will probably be one of my 11 hires this year, would be a social media person.
Yeah.
Who their full-time job would be getting us out there on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and all those things that really get us out there all day long. And that'll be something we'll probably look at doing.
Yeah, that's I decided, since I'm just comfortable in those environments. Like I said, everybody does. Like, some people say, oh, I built it exclusively under the door because that's what they knew. Some company, hey, I did just, Thumbtack, and that's what they were comfortable with. They were comfortable. I'm just comfortable being a face and being in front of a camera. And so I'm doing, every time I'm in the field, I'm shooting everything that I could possibly shoot. And then, he's producing it, 3 times a week right now. So consistently Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, putting out content. I want a next thing. I'm trying to get him more on the SEO. It's just not his forte. It's very tough. I was doing the SEO. I'm doing right now all the analysis because I understand it, but I just hired a company to do the GMB. I said, I'm taking this off my plate and I'm hiring, but it's very hard when I've gone through 4 companies and $15,000 later, both of them tanked my SEO. I said, the funny is you can point out all my errors, but I still do SEO better than you do. Because at least I get the calls.
That is something that, that's something Seth Garber and I were talking about too, is, and he spoke to some Indiana people as well, was, most small companies can't afford SEO.
Not the reality of it.
Correct. Once you get to $1 million, that's when you really start pumping that money into search engine optimization, right? Until then, you probably handle most of it yourself. You probably could.
Oh, I was doing content writing, at one point 5 days a week. I was writing 1 page a day for 2 years.
Good. That's good.
That's what I had to do. I knew what the game was. I knew what I had to do to compete. Now it's much harder. I mean, now it's probably 10x harder than when I started, but we're ranking because, we have the domain authority. I built that up. I mean, that was just easier for me to sit behind all day a computer do this, answer the calls, and just be a cop, traffic cop, and scheduling and billing, and just be an admin and just hire all that out. Now we're hiring out the SEO. Just out of curiosity, what's your budget on advertising right now? What are you spending on a percentage wise?
We're TJ, where are we at? 5.5%, 6%.
Okay.
Our advertising was 6%, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, probably 6%.
Yeah.
It's
So
small.
that's why you got that. And when I talk to people who are hyper growing, they're somewhere in 15 to 25.
Yeah.
Because you need it. It's a machine that needs to be fed. It's a monster, but you didn't create a monster. You're creating a machine that's, finely oiled. You see that consistency, that 25. People don't have the patience sometimes for that 25, but if you can compound it, that's where it's nice. It allows, I mean, I need more breathing room now to think and not be frantic, because I've been, the only thing that saved me, honestly, Pete, was that I did create a niche, and then I created a subcategory. Blue ocean strategy for me was an eye opener on what I had to do when I rebranded, because in Miami, I can't compete with Roach guys selling $65 service. I just can't. Everybody. So I had to create, so we were able to create super premium pricing, and that's what keeps me where I need only, my techs produce half of what a normal tech does, but with really high margins. That's changing. Now I have, when I only had 2 competitors in the market, now I probably have 10. Yeah. And still competing in the regular arena with the other 300 companies that I have in my county. I mean, I did a 13 mile around me. I pulled 60 companies within 13 miles around me.
Wow.
And I got all their pricing. I called them all. We're getting all their pricing to figure out where that pricing is and where that sweet spot is, so I can kind of compete where I'm, I don't want to be the low baller, but I can't afford to be the most expensive guy in the market either.
Right.
I can't afford it anymore. It's no longer a business strategy for me. And it's for some people says, no, you can make more money on one times. And I said, yes, if you're a one-man operation and they're buying you, but I don't care for that anymore. I'm not even interested in that. I want to build that culture. I want to build it over time. I tend to be, as I get older, I have a lower tolerance for the risk. I'm more risk averse now. I'm not as, let's go for it. It's more of that, I still have that 20% right now. For COVID was a disaster and I was out of the game for a bit. But yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at now, where I have my 5-year plan of where in the markets I want to be in the next 5 years. And I'm in a place where I can focus and do it. And also the numbers are there for us to be able to say yes to a lot more things. Yeah, man, is there anything you want to tell me that I didn't ask you that I should have? You said, man, I talked to this. I know you were just in Indiana too. I think you were with Doug Foster hanging out over there. What an incredible guy. I love that old man.
Yeah, there was
sorry, Doug, I called you old, but you're older than me. So
Doug's an awesome guy, and he's got a huge heart and a passion for pest control in our industry. He's got a passion for our industry, and he's a great guy. No, I was with Seth Garber and Doug Foster, and we had, I think we had 22, 23 people show up. It was just strictly business stuff. And I talked about, Seth did a great job, talked about, where you should be, what you should be focusing on at each level of your business. That 250, 0 to 250, 250 to 750, 750 to $1.5 million, and then 2 million plus. He did a really good job of breaking down, and his things, sales, keep giving that sales. My thing was more, I was looking at more of, why do we do pest control? Break down, why are you in business? Why is Franklin Hernandez? Let me ask you a question, Franklin. Why are you doing pest control?
Well, I'm doing pest control because it's one of those things I just fell in love with.
But why? Why are you doing
it appeals to me on both because I was always been a little geek. And it appealed to me on the chemical side, the biology side, all that. It just appealed to me. But why I stayed in lawn and ornamental so long is because I enjoyed going in and taking something that was destroyed or not pretty and making it pretty.
Okay, so that's the why. So let's stop right there.
Right.
So if you're going to sell that to a client, you'd say, why does Franklin Hernandez do ornamental work? Because he wants to make your yard look pretty. Okay, that's the why. Why Schopen Pest Solutions does pest control is to ease our clients' stress. That's the why, right? And so that's what we broke down. And I when I go to New Mexico, we're going to talk more about that, and then again in Wisconsin. But there, you need to have the why are you doing pest control? You're doing it because you want to take ugly things and make them pretty. Okay, and so that's what I really focused on with the people in Indiana.
Got it. Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of the things that then when I rebranded, when I started, in just to give you a little bit of history for those that don't know it, and for you, I was working for one guy that would mix 5 chemicals in one tank. They were all organophosphates. They were ancient. And we were going out and spraying everybody with the same thing. I mean, that was my training. This is how you do it. You mix 32 ounces of this in 100 gallon. You take 20, 20, 20, and you do all this, and you mix it all up, and you take a fungicide, 2 organophosphates. I mean, this stuff was I didn't realize how much testing I was going to have to go through medically by dealing with just organophosphates. There were 3 of them. And that was my training. And then I took the first CEU course. And of course, Austin Frischman was there, and he just totally destroyed everything that was being taught to me. And I started doing this thing into IPM, and I got really into IPM, and I started taking a bunch of IPM courses. And I was the only guy there, and everybody else was like, yeah. I'm the only geek in the room, and I just, when I realized, I didn't necessarily want to spray everyone's floor with their little kid, and it wasn't even necessary. And it's not that I'm anti-chemical. It's like, my premise is always, is it necessary? Why do we have to spray your floor with all that chemical when it's not necessary? And so I started implementing a lot of this in organics in landscapes. And organic in because I said, if you can do it in crop production, why can't we do it in ornamentals? And I wanted to create something that was just I was more environmentally conscious for being an old guy like me. And that just started to snowball. I started having all the conversations with everybody. Everybody said, it can't be done, it can't be done, it can't be done. And I just kept at it. And then finally I had perfected that for 5-6 years. I said, what the heck am I going to do? Because I had a landscape company. We had a pool service company. I had a lot of different businesses. And I said, I'm just going to rebrand it, and it's going to be Nature Pest. And we're going to be focused on the eco-friendliness aspect of what we do, because I was really passionate about solving people's problem without having to contaminate it. And my aha moment was when I asked the question to myself. I said, if you had to treat a hospital surgical room, how would you treat it? Because that's a sensitive environment. And I started doing the research. So for me, it's really about, solving people's problems, protecting, the having a holistic approach where we're really protecting their home, their pets, their plants, the environment.
Right.
And we're trying to do what's right by everybody. And that's been our approach. And that's what kind of drives me to have this approach, because we are doing something that's really different than what everybody else is trying to sell. A lot of the big companies are doing this. So we're trying to brand ourselves, and branding was important for us because nobody knew what the heck organic pest control was, holistic pest control, natural. It was actually taboo still in this industry to really talk about it in most circles. You get crucified for it. So, that to me is my passion. So this is when I talk to people and why we do it, and our technicians explain to people why we don't do this or that. Okay, I get it. So that's, my why is I really want to expand. And that's why you see me doing so much podcasting, and even in my own Nature Pest YouTube videos, we really want to expose the clients to what IPM is, that it's not always necessary.
Right.
Not against it, but is it necessary? And that's just been my passion for a lot of what I do, is is getting that brand out of what we do and why we do it.
Sound good.
So what else? When are you coming to Miami, man?
Don't say that. My wife can hear you. We got a lot on the plate this year. For those people who might not know, definitely I would love to have them read PMP Magazine. Starting in 2023, we're going to be going in a different direction. It will no longer be the startup diaries.
Right.
It's going to be startup stories. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be following and mentoring and coaching 5 different pest control companies who are ready to take the next step.
Got it.
And, I'm really excited. My first people that I'll be talking to will be Angie and Bill Richter out of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Nice guys. Yeah.
They're
I've met them before.
Just the best people. But they're ready to take that next step. They want to grow their business.
Yeah.
And so I'll be meeting with them, and we'll be going over the why. We'll also be doing SWOT analysis for them. Once again, for people who don't know, brings the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats. We'll be going over that with them. That'll all be going into the article. And so we're going to be following them. Then in March, there'll be another company, April, another company, May, another company, and June, our 5th company. Then we'll start back around in July and revisit those 5 companies again and see how they're doing. See if they're implementing some of the things that we brainstormed about. So that'll be what I'll be doing this upcoming year. Tammy and I would love to get in our RV, and we're going to travel and meet these people face to face.
Awesome.
And so that's going to be pretty cool. And so I'm on the Purdue steering committee for bringing in lecturers and stuff like that. And setting up the Purdue conference. I'm really excited about that opportunity.
I really want to make it out there this year in January. I'm going to see how everything is that I can get away because I've been wanting to go there for almost 10 years now.
It is this particular year, the group of speakers. I mean, it's going to be Alan Foyer is going to be speaking, Paul Bello, Bobby Corrigan, Kevin Thorne. I mean, it's just a who's who of people that'll be speaking at this thing. So it's my buddy Zach Ewert from Wisconsin, Green Bay area is be talking about bats. It's going to be really an impressive.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if you'll handle it or not, Franklin, because it's going to be about 100 degrees cooler here than in Miami. So
yeah, I could do it. I was in Michigan 2 years ago. I went up there for a training institute to do some recording for them, and I was up there in Michigan in. I think it was December. It was December, right before Christmas. I went out there, but I lived in Ohio. I lived in Ohio for 8 years. I lived
All right.
Yeah, I lived in Columbus. So yeah, but anyway, I still got my long johns, and I'm gonna look like I'm going skiing everywhere I go.
Oh, it gets so cold. It was cold here today. It was when I woke up this morning, it was 7 degrees, 0 with the wind chill. It was so cold this morning. And then
I woke up and I walked out in my like this, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like it must have been 68.
Hey, screw you, Franklin. But
yeah, I was like, oh man, it's cold this morning. It was like 68.
Oh, I wish. But otherwise, everything here is good. Like I said, my wife and I, we're getting ready for the upcoming year. We'd love to get out and visit a bunch of people. So if we can make it to Miami, I promise that'll be one of our top destinations, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely would like to meet. Hopefully, I can do January. I'm going to take a little trip out to Georgia right after the holiday, and I'm going to be out in Georgia. So I'm going to go see Paul Bello while I'm there. I'm going to be driving through Atlanta and that area. And
yeah, Paul Bello's got a good workshop coming up in March in Nashville.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'll be going to that one too, and because I don't think you can ever stop learning in our industry. The moment you think you know everything, then you're probably going to start failing.
Yeah, no, I realize the more I learn, the least I mean, what I don't know, and at every level is different. A lot of people think like I have friends who are actually following me right now who ask me the question, bro, that corporate stuff, you understand it, I don't understand it. How do I do that to grow my business? And he's a one-man operation. And I said, yeah, but it comes along with the experience. You're going to have to go through it, man. You're going to have to get to that point, and you hit the wall, and you get people to help you through that wall, and then you get to the next wall. And it's just, there's nothing that you're going to be able to learn to have all the answers. I don't have them. Anything else? Anything you want to add? Anything? All right, brother, man. I appreciate you. Yeah, no, right. Me too.
But I'm very honored I'm very honored you asked me, and I've been looking forward to this. So I really appreciate you having me on today.
No, thank you. I've been waiting a very long time. So this is like, it's one of my, bucket lists that I can scratch off.
Thanks.
Thank you, my friend. Take care of yourself.